The Phoenix Suns, after a relatively solid start to the year, have regressed terribly and are now below 500 with a record of 21-24 on the outside looking into the play-in tournament in the Western Conference. That is a pretty dramatic fall off record-wise for a team that through 45 games last year was 36-9. So what happened to the Phoenix Suns that they have fallen off this dramatically in this short of a term, and what does this mean for their future going forward? Real quick, if you end up enjoying this video, please be sure to subscribe to get more of these videos. I'm going to try to be uploading 3 days a week from here on out. Also, drop a like to help the video do better than the algorithm. It only takes you 1 second and makes a massive difference for me. Also, go check out the podcast that we're going to be doing live pretty soon after this video goes up. So that will be linked in the description as well. And one last thing, yes, I made a poor decision with my facial hair. If we all just ignore it, I'll have a beard back in like a week. That's about how much time it takes. I apologize that you have to look at this. Now, there are a handful of reasons why the Phoenix Suns have sucked this year. However, the obvious one and the easiest one to get rid of right out of the gate has to be, of course, injury. Devin Booker has missed 15 games this year. Chris Paul has missed 18. And Cameron Johnson, who started the year really well, ended up playing just 8 games so far this year due to injury, and he still has yet to return. The Phoenix Suns are actually 18-10 with Devin Booker. So that might make you look at things and excuse this all entirely on injury. Well, if Devin Booker played, then the team would be successful. However, I think this is underlying a more significant issue, which is that this team relies so significantly on Book and CP3 and just a small handful of players that if they don't have their production, they are screwed. Yeah, obviously the Phoenix Suns are going to be better with Devin Booker than without him. But the fact that the difference between the two is this comically dramatic shows that the depth and the versatility and the multifacetedness of this Phoenix Suns team that got them to the finals and to be a championship caliber, at least contending team, well, all of that is gone in favor of Devin Booker hero ball. If you tune into the games, yeah, they're winning with him, but it's really just because Devin Booker is carrying them, and that's really not an ideal situation to be in. If the only way you're going to win is because your star to superstar level player just goes the hell off, that's the only avenue you have. It's not going to result in winning basketball at the highest level, and currently it's not even resulting at the lowest. Next, of course, I have to talk about Chris Paul, who has finally shown probably the most significant stage of regression in his career, although it is worthy of mention that after he started the year like really bad, he has turned it around quite a bit to still be, you know, similar-ish stats to last year at the very least, although his efficiency can still use some work. Right now, Chris Paul is averaging about 13 points on 55% true shooting, which I believe is a little bit below league average right now. He's become so passive scoring the ball that it has really negated his value as a playmaker. Teams have started to play him more straight up for the pass rather than for the score because Chris is just really never looking to get his own points. And really, I can't blame him for that. At the ripe old age of 36, 37 he is now, Chris Paul really cannot be shooting the ball as much times as the Phoenix Suns probably wish that he could. You're not really going to get prime Chris Paul who's going to put up 19 to 23 points per game. You really are not getting that, and because of that, the Phoenix Suns have suffered. And that really isn't to be blamed on Chris Paul because, again, he's the age that he is and he's expected to be not as good. That's just kind of how it works. But where the criticism should be going is in the Phoenix Suns for not having any kind of backup plan for this, because Lord knows we all saw this coming. This is something that has been debated every year with the Phoenix Suns. Every year going into the evaluation you make for the Suns, you have to have the caveat where you're like, you know, is this the year that Chris Paul's finally going to see a significant dip? And seems like this is finally the big one, and the Phoenix Suns have no answer to it whatsoever. And that makes me worry about their future going forward, because if they need Chris Paul so much to succeed and he's really not there to carry them to success anymore, then they're going to go right back to being a pretty piss poor organization. And the way that this team is trending, it's going to be an example of Devin Booker being a lone star on some team that just simply is not enough around him. And Lord knows we don't want that to happen, but you know, it's kind of going in that direction. No one enjoys it when a star player is stranded in a bad situation. At least I don't. Another big thing for the Phoenix Suns that really I was banking on to help keep them afloat this year is that Mikal Bridges and DeAndre Ayton refuse to elevate their games. If you take a look at Mikal Bridges' stats when Devin Booker has played versus when he has not, it's actually comical. He plays the same regardless of the context. He's always going to get you a pretty efficient 15 and play some fantastic defense. And that is the same thing he's done even in games where the team really needed somebody to step up in the shot creation department, which is an area where Mikal Bridges has shown some competence. So for him to just continue to just be the role player that he is, it's really failing to elevate in a way that a lot of us had anticipated. One thing I said about the Phoenix Suns going into this year is they needed to make an effort to give Chris Paul less of an important role to this team, and the way they were going to do that is by shifting the focus of the offense more toward Bridges and especially towards DeAndre Ayton. Obviously Bridges is the example I use just because of the comparison and contrast to with and without Booker, but just looking purely from a stagnation standpoint, DeAndre Ayton is still averaging the same numbers that he did in his rookie year, and it's getting a little annoying that he does not take steps forward. And he does, like, in visual ways obviously, but I really truly believe there is like a stat sheet stuffing 25 and 12 big man in there with DeAndre Ayton, but he's too passive, and the Phoenix Suns really don't embrace him at all, which I feel like most franchises would and should. So I really kind of hope that he gets away from them so that he can actually reach that potential, although I'm not going to take away the part of this that is his role in this equation, because he also has his own issues that have prevented him from really blossoming rather than just being acceptable quality for the level of player that he was expected to be. Both of them are disappointing, and Cam Johnson kind of looked like he was going to help step up with the young player area thing, but again, has not really played. So the young players that the Phoenix Suns have, Devin Booker is no longer really young at this point, they are not really elevating. They were built to be, you know, on the Phoenix Suns of last year and the year before. They're not really built to be on a Phoenix Suns team that expects more of them, and that's concerning because this Phoenix Suns team needs more from them. Another big area with this team that I really notice when you tune into the games is that the depth on this team is just absolutely abysmal. With Cameron injured and Jay Crowder thinking he's Kevin Durant for some reason, the wing position has been rough. Now I want to give a shout out to Torrey Craig, because Lord knows this poor man has had to take on way too much of a load for the caliber of player he is. Torrey Craig's a cool backup wing, especially a great third string wing, because he's actually pretty solid. So at least they did have a really good third option at that wing position. Without Cam, without Jay, it's rough. They really could use some depth at that position in particular. That's why the Kyle Kuzma rumors have been going around and stuff like that. OG Anunoby as well. But even separate from that issue alone, when you look at this team's bench, there's not a single player that I trust in a playoff series for real. Like Bismack Biyombo is not really going to mess up. He'll be fine. Cameron Payne is, I guess, an okay backup point guard. Really, ever since he had his breakout year with Phoenix, he's just been Again, Torrey Craig is starting now, so like the depth is horrible. Like Dario Saric is playing bigger minutes. Like It's not great. It really could be better. Because of all the previous things that I have listed, the offense overall has slipped. Again, as I mentioned, it has more and more become just a Devin Booker solo act. And with the offense slipping, the defense has started to as well. So now the Phoenix Suns remain pretty middle of the pack on both sides of the ball. So what can the Phoenix Suns do going forward? Is there any hope at all that they restore the contender level that they've been at the last couple of years? Or are they in a position where they might actually have to rebuild sooner rather than later? Well, me personally, I think they're going to need to go for a fairly aggressive retooling. Luckily, they have, I think, all of their picks, if not all of them, most of them going forward. So with that being the case, I would hope that there is some draft capital in here that would be interesting to teams, and they could trade for one, maybe two, hell, maybe even three players that you can reliably have in your rotation, especially in the wing position. And that would definitely help, and then health, of course, would help. Again, they have a good record when Devin Booker's there, so I ultimately think they can still be a good playoff team when healthy. But I do worry about how much they rely on Devin Booker, and I will say overall for this team, really feels like the window's closed. As much as I try to be optimistic, this has been a team that I've been defensive of in the past, although I've kind of gone back and forth with whether or not I really like them. It's a hard team to root for sometimes, but I often do, and unfortunately, it just doesn't feel like they have enough, and it really doesn't feel like whatever they can do to recover this thing, unless they pull off some miraculous deal, whatever they do, I doubt it's going to recapture the magic of the team that made the finals, and that might have just been their peak. I will say though, a retooling could definitely solve the Chris Paul issue, because that kind of goes along with it. Like, the Chris Paul issue is not that he's regressing. The Chris Paul issue is that the Suns need him as much as they do, so it matters more that he's regressing. Like, really, it's the over-reliance issue, not that, because that was to be expected. So yeah, Phoenix Suns, not an ideal situation. I wouldn't really consider them a contender at this point. They're the 11th seed right now, and even though they can definitely push their way back in, and I would even bank on that happening, I'm not really gonna be scared of them if I'm any other team in the Western Conference, and I would be shocked if any team in the East had to be worried because they're not making it out. I do think a retooling could fix things a little bit, but I don't know. I would not be that hopeful if I was a Phoenix Suns fan. But yeah, that is it. Goodbye.